Good afternoon, everyone. Hope I am audible to all of you. If I am audible, you can type in the chat box. Thank you, Subhendu sir. So, let us start today's session where we are going to talk about the tower footing resistance measurement. Today, directly before going to the tower footing resistance measurement, we will be starting with the things that what is earthing, what are the different types of earthing, what is earth pit, what is earth pit resistance, soil resistivity, what are the different types of rods or earthing methods are used, then what are the different way we can measure the earth resistance and resistivity, and finally we will be going into the actual tower footing resistance measurement, their principle, and lastly we'll be completing with a small introduction to our instrument TM25R, the tower footing resistance meter. Let's start with the earthing as decided. So earthing system, why earthing? Earth is a universal ground. We know this thing, or it is considered as a thumb rule for every measurement or every design or any system, electrical system or even electronic system. There should be an arrangement to provide a low resistance path to the ground. That is the main purpose of having an earthing. It is very important, or the most important part, at the condition when there is a fault is appearing. If it is the system is healthy, earth is not playing that much big role. But when there is any fault in the system, then at that time it becomes the most crucial thing, because it gives the condition to pass the fault current or fault voltage to the ground. So our objective of earthing is to provide a zero potential surface in and around and under the area where the electrical equipment is installed. So we'll not be talking majorly on any other application like electronics application or other application. We'll be talking purely on the electrical zone where our earthing is coming, and it is assuring a zero potential surface in and around the installation. Earthing is very essential at every stage of electricity, namely generation, transmission, distribution, and industrial installation, where the electricity is getting produced, transmitted, or consumed. The importance, obviously, as we know, everyone, it is providing the most important thing, personal safety of the user. Where it is safety working personnel while working in the with the electrical equipments. It is also giving the protection to the equipment, whether it is testing instrument or other instrument which is getting operated by some electrical power. It prevents or minimizes the damage to the equipment as a result of heavy fault current and lighting. And lastly, protecting the system. It improves the reliability of the power supply, including the generator. What is earth pit and why it is required? It is the point through which we are connecting the grounding point of the equipment to the earth rod or an earth mat. Every equipment is provided with a functional earth or the instrument earth. So we need to connect that instrument R to a point. We know that this is the earthing point we used to talk, but this earthing point, what is inside, that is actually the earth peak. So Earth pit are designed to reduce ground resistance, ideally to a zone of 1 ohm or something like that. When fault occurs, the current flows from the power system or the equipment to the earth through the earth pit. Now coming to the types of earthing. There are different types of earthing are available. First, it is coming as the plate earthing. In the plate earthing, what it is there, as we can see in the picture, right hand side, there is the cast iron rod or plates are getting used, as we can see at the top, cast iron cover. Then there is a wire mesh is used, and there is a funnel. This funnel purpose I will be coming into the later on. And here these are the plates through which we are doing the physical earthing of the system. And at the bottom of the same we are putting the charcoal or the salt, or nowadays in the with the advancement of technology, we are using the some special compounds which are used, known as the earth earthing rejuvenation or earth enhancing compound material. And we are making a concrete or some metal boxes to access, so that this part doesn't get covered up over a period of time with the dust and other things. The link whatever has been shown over here are just like, this is not just like it is 2000 mm and 1200 mm, it is fixed. Generally we are talking about a 3 meter depth, but it has to be varied as per the various calculations at the time of installation, what type of soil it is, what are the resistivity, and then accordingly how much depth and how many plates or how many parallel earthing needs to be given. So this is the called as the plate earthing. When it comes to this funnel, as I have told at the very beginning, the purpose of the funnel is that we can put, if the earth resistance is going higher, we can put some salt water or the normal water just to increase or rejuvenate the earth pit or reduce the value of the earthing. Then comes the second way of earthing, pipe earthing. It is 90% or 99% similar as that of the plate earthing, but the plate or the conductive plates are only getting replaced with a pipe. The pipe could be hollow, or it is generally nowadays, earlier days some people used to use the hollow pipings, but nowadays people are using the solid rod. So it can be called as a rod earthing also. So as the moment we are changing the thing from pipe to the rod, the things is called as a rod earthing. So where the construction remains almost same, there is the earth pit. Then we are putting the rod inside, making a hole as desired, and from that rod we are connecting our equipment earthing to the this system or a ground. Then comes the strip earthing. The use is very limited, very rare condition. This is strip earthing is used. This can be considered the strip earthing something like to increase the surface area of the earth plate, because if it is a rod, then it might not be possible in some terrain where it could be a rocky terrain or something like that, where to dig a dip might not be possible. In such type of a case, people in very special condition, people are using the strip earthing, where a copper strip is made horizontally as shown in the right hand side. First it is going down vertically, after certain direction it is going horizontally. The purpose is to increase the surface area, so that the contact with the earth, pure earth, so that the Basic purpose of earthing remains same. Generally, in the hilly terrain, where some rocks are there, or in the transmission tower, sometimes these sort of strip earthings are getting used. And the most common as of today's thing is the mat earthing, where once again those sort of copper strips are getting used to create a mat under the soil. And then all the earth pits are getting connected to this copper mat, which is lying at a certain depth below the surface. So whatever it is coming from any of the earth pit, those are getting distributed. So the strip earthing's use is now much more enhanced way we are using by creating a mat. So now coming to the what are the factors impacting the earth pits. If the water table under the ground is varying, so the moisture content of the surface or the ground is also varying. Because if the water level is coming too high to too closer to the surface of the earth, then the moisture content of the earth, the soil is increasing. But if the water level is going to down, then at that time the moisture content also going down. So water table variation, which will occur due to seasonality. Mainly in the dry season, the water level goes down. In the rainy season, the water level or the water table remains at the very nearer to the ground. So in that fashion, it is changing. Corrosion to the grounding conductors and materials. Now, if the corrosion is happening at the grounding conductors and materials, then the contact with the surface, earth surface is changing, and as a result of the same, the corrosion, the resistance of the thing is totally changing, and as a result, final result, the earth pit resistance will change. Contamination of the soil and surrounding from spillage such as chemical, oil, acid, etc. Because depending upon what type of chemicals or the foreign materials has came and enter into the surface, into the vicinity of the earth pit or the earth rod, depending upon the same, the nature of the earth is changing. As the change in nature, the conductivity or the resistivity of the earth is changing, and as a result of the same, the earth pit resistance is changing. Then comes the mechanical integrity of the rod, electrical integrity of the rod, as well as associated nearby surface, and ultimately, the last but not the least, if there is not proper maintenance, then anything will go bad. So it is similarly applicable for the earth pits. If we are not maintaining the earth pit properly over a period of time, so the pit resistance will get changed. Now coming to the soil resistivity. Now, what's the difference between soil resistivity and the soil or the earth pit resistance? Earth pit resistance means that it is the resistance of that specific point where my earth rod is coming in contact with the ground. Whereas in soil resistivity, it is not a specific point, it is the value of a specific terrain. So to understand resistivity, we have to consider the theoretical resistance of a cylinder of earth with a cross section of 1 square meter and at a length of 1 meter. Or we can say for visual identification, it is a pipe, solid pipe of rod or earth rod of 1 square diameter and 1 meter length. What will be the resistance of that thing? So that is called as a resistivity, and because we can implement that, if the resistance of one unit is this much, so how much will be the resistance is over the surface or something like that. So soil resistivity is soil resistance or the earth pitch resistance is measured or told as the ohm, the basic resistance unit. But in case of resistivity, it is expressed in ohm meters. It signifies how well the soil conducts the electrical current. Resistivity varies significantly according to the region and the type of soil. So if the type of soil is changing from rocky to muddy, the resistivity of that soil will change. Resistivity varies across the seasons or the measurement condition. How I am measuring, that is going to give me different types of resistivity. So the soil resistance measurement or soil resistivity measurement, earthquake resistance measurement, those seems to be very simple, but there is a very big science. So it is not at all a simple measurement. It requires a lot of basic things. Basic fundamentals has to be clear for the operator, and obviously the instrument is having separate sets of complexities. Now, as we have understood, the deeper we are going for the earth pit rod, it is better. So it is advisable to bury your earth electrode as deep as possible, because it is becoming less sensitive to environmental variations. Like if there is some, let's say only 50 centimeter I have put, because there is a small person or some person is coming with a bucket of water and he is putting the water, so the value of that resistance immediately will get changed. But when it is going up to 3 meter deep, absorption of the water will take time. So abruptly it will not change. Also, there are other things like what are the stray voltages or the stray currents available on the earth's surface. So if there are stray voltage and stray currents available in the earth's surface, the value of earth resistance or the earthquake resistance of the earth resistivity will change. But when we are going to the deeper part of the soil, at that time the value of these superficial values, whatever is available on the surface of the earth, the stray voltages, stray currents, all those things are going into their minimal values. Hence, we have mentioned over here that it is less sensitivity to environmental variations when the electrode rod has gone to the deeper. Soil resistivity measurement helps us to choose the location and types of earth electrodes and earth networks before building them. So before making or building any factory or a substation or a generating station, we have to do the soil resistivity survey. We need to define the electrical specification of the earth electrodes and earth networks. So what type of earthing network I will be using? How much bigger will be the mesh? How earth mesh will be there? How much horizontal and how much vertical strips I will be using? How much depth I will be using? All those things. Whether any special types of treatments are required for the that specific soil, or we do not require any specific pre-treatment, only normal thing is sufficient, or we need to put some special chemical sort of a thing so that we can have the proper earthing. All those things will coming into picture, and then only we can optimize the construction cost for the earth electrode and earth network. Because I can put a lot of earthing electrodes and earthing network, the mesh or other things, I can create a lot. But how much I need to invest, because those are copper strips we are using. So how much copper strips? So we have to optimize for any design. So that's the design optimization cost are coming to picture by doing the soil resistivity measurement. Now let us have a quick look of the different types of soils and their resistivity. This is just a rule of thumb which is available in IEEE standard. We have just mentioned this as a reference. The different types of soil, like marshland, will be getting less than 30 ohm meter. A loam kind of surface will be getting 20 to 100. Humus soil will be getting 10 to 150. Clay sand will be getting 50 to 500. In that fashion, it is going. And the highest resistivity we can expect where we are having the granite and sandstone, because their conductivity is very less, where we can get up to 1500 or even up to 10,000, depending upon the what type of a granite and what type of a sandstone, their composition and all those things. So this is the specific need why we require the earthing measurement. One of the basic prerequisites for guaranteeing the safety on any residential or industrial electrical application, so as to provide an earth electrode. If there is no earth or ground electrode, people's lives may be endangered, because if there is any fault, the entire fault current will not get passed on, and if the operator touches the system, or the user touches the system, then they may get electrocuted and they may lose their life also. Even for the high voltage system, even if we are not touching, if the earthing calculation has not been done properly, we can expect a step voltage potential, which is, once again, it is something like that. If the tower resistance has gone bad and we have not maintained over a period of time, the former has started forming, and while walking itself he got electrocuted, because the fall of potential or the potential distribution is not proper, and the voltage gradient has killed him, which will be an accident, purely accident. So based on that sort of thing, we need to take care of the earthing measurement. But in any system, a single electrode alone may not be sufficient to give the 100% guarantee of total safety. So we are talking about the parallel earthing points or parallel earth electrodes. From that one only the advanced consideration has come, when we have started talking about the earth mesh or the copper mesh at the bottom, so that our target is to increase the quality of earthing, and whether all these things are working properly or not, that needs to be revalidated over a period of time. Only regular inspections can prove that the electrical installation is operating correctly. Now coming to the different measurement methods for earth resistance and earth resistivity. There are the various methods available. When it comes to the earth resistance, people are starting with the most simple one, the stakeless or clamp-on measurement, where there is no such earth spikes need to be inserted. Only you can use a clamp-on meter kind of a earth tester, where you can get the direct value of probable resistance. There are the, once again, without signal injection clamp-on measurement and with signal injection clamp-on measurement. There are two types of clamp-on measurements are available. One is that without signal injection, that means whatever is the earth leakage current flowing into the circuit or flowing to the ground, that we are measuring, and from that one we are calculating the earth resistance or the earth pit resistance. And there is one more option, that where we are putting the some external generator, signal generator, or the current injector, AC injector, and then we are using the stakeless method or clamp-on measurement to understand how much is the value of the earth pit. Then comes one pole or single stake measurement. Here from onwards we are using the 62% variant method. So the 62% variant method, that these methods in details I will be coming into the subsequent slides. And second way of single pole or single stake measurement is that phase to phase earth loop measurement method. These are the two methods available under single pole or single stake measurement. Then comes the two pole or two stake measurement or triangular measurement method. Then comes the most popular three pole and four pole measurements for the earth electrode or the earth pit resistance measurement. Then coming to the soil earth resistivity, there also like earth resistance, earth pit resistance measurement, there are several processes are used, but the most widely used are four electrode method with two options. One is Wiener's method and second one is Schlumberger method. So these are the most commonly used method. And there is this one more thing might be coming into your mind, that we have heard about the fall-off potential method. What is that? The fall-off potential method will be coming into once again into details, as fall-off potential is not a testing method. It is that talking about the process when we are doing the four pole measurement or three pole measurement, how the measurement should be carried out. That is called as the fall-off potential. So it is not the measurement principle, it is a measurement method, how to admit or something like good practices kind of a thing. I will be coming into that one also in the subsequent slides. So in the earth resistivity, Wiener's method is suitable for measurement at single depth, and Schlumberger method suitable for measurement at different depths as required for geological soil profiles. Now coming into the measurement methods in details. However, as per IEEE standard 81 guide for measuring the earth resistivity, ground impedance and earth surface potential of the grounding system, the most effective and accurate method for measurement of earth resistance is 3-point or fall-off potential method. So here lies the fall-off potential and how that method is explained, that I will be coming into the subsequent one. Now, first is that clamp-on method or stakeless. Clamping the tester around the ground electrode under test. So directly will be putting the clamp into the earthing strip or earthing path of the installation. This is quick and easy, very quick, simple one current tongue kind of a setup or clamp on setup I have to use, and immediately I will be getting the result. So easy also, quick result, but there are so much buts will be coming. What are the buts, ifs and buts? However, before going into those buts or the limitations of this method, let us talk about the how the measure resistance without disconnecting the what are the benefits of the process. We can measure the resistance without disconnecting the ground system. So no disconnection of the grounding system or earth wire is required. Bond to the ground and overall grounding connection resistance can be understood easily. It is bonding to the ground. How much good bonding is there? The better the bonding, the leakage current flow will be better. So it is giving the indication of the bonding to the ground and overall grounding connection resistance. Because here we are not measuring any specific point here, that we are going to get a loop, as we have mentioned in the last point. The tester measures the complete resistance path, the loop that the signal is taking. All elements of the loop are measured in series. So when we are measuring the current, and from that one we are going to get back the resistance value, then we are not getting the value of that individual earth pit. We are practically going to get the resistance of all elements into the loop, that current loop, whatever is there. The tester and when it comes to the with injection, the tester will apply a known voltage without a direct electrical connection via a transmit coil, and it will measure the current via the receive coil. So when we are using a coupling kind of a thing, not the direct coupling but indirect coupling. So I will be injecting a known voltage into the system, and the clamp on meter will pick up that specific signal. So I know how much current is getting generated as an application of mine, that known voltage with known frequency. So based on that one, I'll be doing a calculation. So you can now understand that when we are talking about stateless, the clamp-on method without the signal injection will not be that much good or accurate if we compare the same with the stateless method with independent source or known source. The tester applies or will be applying a voltage with known voltage with having specific frequency, and that specific measurement I will be taking care. So at least the some elements, whatever the elements are coming to the loop, that will be considered, but at least I am not considering any stray currents, whatever is passing in parallel, that I will be able to eliminate. But however, the loop thing will come, whatever is coming into that electrical loop, that will be coming into picture. So those are the major limitations of the clamp-on method. For the clamp-on method to be effective, there must be a complete grounding circuit in place. It has to be a complete circuit, otherwise the current or the leakage current will not flow and no measurement can be possible. It is important to understand the limitations of the test method so that we don't get misleading reading. Limitations are, this is effective only in situations with multiple grounds in parallel, because then only I'll be able to get a loop current, and until a loop current is there, we cannot use the stateless method or clamp-on method. It cannot be used on isolated grounds, because the isolated grounding conditions, it is not applicable for isolated ground conditions. Means when I am going for a new installation or commissioning in new sites, there I can't use this thing, because there the ground is might be isolated, it is not yet connected. So in a normal system with some limitations, we cannot be used if alternate lower resistance return exists not involving the soil. So this measurement cannot understand if the system, whether it is passing or picking up the current, leakage current, which is flow through the ground path, or it is flowing through any other parallel path or low resistance path available in parallel with the grounding system. It cannot understand. So ultimately the result must be accepted on faith. So this is the very basic thing. If you are having faith, okay, you keep on doing this because it's easy. The instruments are cheaper, it's quick, fast, all these things. So, but the measurement accuracy is very poor. So these are the limitations, whatever we have told is the reason why we have mentioned at the very beginning, quick, easy, but is coming or getting explained over here. Now coming to the single stake measurement, which is called also as the single stake measurement with 62% variant method. Why it is called single stake? Because it also do not require any disconnection of the earth bar. Only one auxiliary stake is necessary, as shown in the picture in the center, as you can see. Let me open the whiteboard for the marking. I'm using the green pointer. So here you can see S. This is my additional probe which I have used. This one from the kit, I am using the two system earthing as shown over here, point H and point E. These are the system earthings, whatever is already available. The kit is getting connected across these two terminals to complete the current path. And in between, we will be putting only one single state, auxiliary state S at a specified distance. Now, this measurement principle is the same for the normal 62% method, means the distance SE, that is this distance S to E, this should be around 62% of the total distance HE. Hope I could clear you. That's the reason it is called as the 62% method. So, as we have mentioned over here, distance AC is equals to 62% of HE. This is the roughly thumb rule we are talking as the 62% method. As a result, S will normally be located in a neutral zero voltage reference earth zone. So, this is how the earthing is getting distributed, or the distributed voltage, and we'll be getting a 0 volt earth reference zone roughly at the 62%. Now this 62% has not come just like that. People has done a lot of study, and then they have found out the 62% zone is the safe zone to do the measurement, or the ideal zone to do the measurement. So, if the length of HE is 100 meter, then the length of, or the voltage lead should be connected at a distance of 65 meter from the instrument. The earth resistance is calculated now as V equals to IR, or R is equals to measured voltage by current injected. So, the classical Ohm's law formula is also coming into the same calculation in this measurement, in the same fashion. Now coming to the resistance measurement, phase 2 with single phase to phase earth loop measurement, single step. In an urban environment, it is often difficult to measure the earth resistance with methods using the stakes, because it is impossible to set up the stakes for reasons of space, concrete zones or concrete roads, areas, etc. building. Thus, the standard for the electrical installation testing allow measurements by the loop impedance method if it is impossible to use the stakes. So, if stakes cannot be utilized, then only this thing has come into picture. Then we can go for the phase to phase earth loop measurement. So as we can see in the picture right hand side, bottom corner, the PE is the kit earthing or the things, and across there is one RCD cable, RCD through the RCD monitor there, that clamp will be using, and we can see how much the loop resistance is coming into picture. Loop resistance measurement is the very same way like we are measuring the voltage and current. And as we have done into the RCD thing, which has been mentioned over here, it is the something you can consider as the same the earth leakage cam, whichever we have used in the earlier case. So that RCD clamp we will be using. The loop resistance measured in this way is also include the earth and the internal resistance of the test object. So what is happening as we are measuring into the circuit, in circuit measurement is happening. So at that time, whatever are the resistance of the cables connected, or there is anything coming in series in the measurement part, all those resistances will come into picture, and it will get added over and above the actual value of earth resistance. So whatever the measured value I will be getting, even if I have switched off all the things, something or other, it will get a parallel path, 99% time I will be getting a parallel path, because everything we cannot stop, or physically we cannot isolate. So R measured, matlab resistance measured will be greater than the actual earth resistance, because it is actual earth resistance meter, earth resistance, the actual value plus something, the value of the test leads, the value of the straight circuit, or whatever is coming into picture of the electrical circuit, that will be coming into picture, and that resistance will get added over and above to the earth resistance. Now resistance triangle measurement method, two step. Whatever is happening, it is used when the three-pole method is not suitable. We require to set up the earth electrode E as shown in the red dot. Stake two stakes S and H as shown in the blue and green dots. So that the S, H and E, these three things cumulatively creates a equilateral triangle. Now measurement process, how we will be doing the measurement? E is my fixed dot. So I need to measure the value between ES and EH. These are the two values I will be measuring, EH and ES. So red and green, and then second measurement I will be doing between red and blue. So these two measurements I will be getting. If these two values are differing substantially, then we have to change the location of S, and once again create a triangle, equilateral triangle, and repeat the measurement. Because if the zone of influence, as shown in the picture, the zone of influence is overlapping with the S. Now in the picture we have not shown the zone of influence is not coming to S, but the zone of influence is limited into the case where we are having the red and green dot. But in case of blue dot, it is not coming into the overlapping zone. So we have to, we are expected to get in the first measurement itself the difference in value. If the difference is value is not there, then we need to repeat the measurement by moving ourselves to a second position and repeat the measurement. So until and unless these values are within few percentage of these two values, ES and EH, these two measurement values are not within few percentage, means less than 1% or something like that, till the time we have to repeat the thing so that we can get the same zone of influence. The measurement has to be done in the same zone. If both H and S are within influence zone or overlapping, for assurance, repeat the measurement, because we, in the first instant itself, we can get, might be getting one position where the two values of S, first measurement and second measurement, are matching. But we do not know that whether both are coming into the zone of influence. If both are coming to the zone of influence, then it might match. But if both of going out of influence, out of the zone of influence, then we need to take the measurement. So we have to understand whether we have really came out of the zone of influence. That's the reason triangular method is not that much reliable, or that it could not get the popularity, though it is giving a very good accuracy in measurement. Just hold on one sec. There is some issues. Yeah. So resistance measurement with the arc electrode.
Now here we are also coming known as the three-pole measurement. The measurement principle involves the use of an appropriate generator G or the test kit, what we can say, to inject an alternating current. Use the earth electrode E and auxiliary electrode H for current path. So as shown into the over here into the as shown over here, this is the E, this is H, and this is S. Here we are using the three poles, or the two. First pole is E, or the three stakes. Second is S, and third one is H. So it is, and here the G is the generator or the test kit, and in the test kit itself we are having a voltmeter or the voltage measurement function. So we can use an appropriate appropriate generator or the test kit to inject a current into the which will be flowing through the earth in this path as shown, and in between these 2 points I will be taking the voltage drop. So it is, we are going to use the earth electrode E as the and auxiliary electrode H for current path. We can use another auxiliary electrode S for voltage pickup E. So in between E and S I will be taking the voltage. Now at the end we need to measure the current, calculate the earth resistance from the formula R equals to VES by IEH. Now, based on the same principle of measurement, three-pole measurement, we can understand the four-pole measurement very easily. That is, only difference between the two systems are that in earlier case we have used only two stakes, and this voltage stakes has been taken the S and E. These are the two things we have. In between that we have taken the voltage. So we have used the three terminals of the instrument. But when we are talking about the next four pole measurement, here we are making a short circuit. Yeah, we are making a short circuit or the parallel connection between these two poles. So H pole or the furthest point is going to the point H, and the nearest pole E is coming over here. Yes. Now what is happening? The current path is in the zone. Let me draw it for your clear understanding. The flow of current is in the same path. This is the path of the flow of current inside the instrument. So this is the current path, and for the voltage path, let us use the color green. So here between these 2 points, I am picking up the voltage. Only thing, here I have used this another green wire, as we can see over here in the E terminal. So from S and E, we are taking up the voltage. So it is very similar to the Kelvin's 4-wire measurement method or the 4-wire principle. As the 4-wire principle do not require any test lead resistance or the lead resistance compensation is not required. So here also we do not require any of the compensations of lead. It is very useful while measuring very low earth resistance values. The most desirable method for power transmission and distribution companies, because it is very useful, gives very authentic result when we are talking about the very low resistance earthing or earth points. And for any generation or distribution companies, generally the value of the earth resistance is very low, less than 5 ohm. So it is very useful method, or it is very popular method among the discoms or generation companies or transmission companies, where they are very comfortably and faithfully using the same system of pole measurement. Now coming to the zone of resistivity measurement through Wiener's method. Now what is different than the earlier 4-wire method? Because here also it is 4-wire method only we are using, at 4-pole or 4-stick. Earlier case we were using the earth electrode as one of the test probe or electrical earth probe. Whereas when we are going for the resistivity, we are not having any such earth peak, so we cannot have access of that one. So to get the earth resistivity value, what we are using by default 4-wire method or 4-stick method, 4-pole method. And as we can see in the picture, the distance between all the 4 earth probes or the earth electrodes has to be kept constant. So 4 electrodes equally spaced at a distance a from one another. So they should be they should be placed in a equal distance. And then a voltage generator will be used, or the generator or the test kit G will be used to inject a current I between the 2 outer electrodes. It is two green electrodes E and H. And voltage will be measured from the in between 2 electrodes, that is S and Es, shown in the blue color. The resistance value R, whatever will be read or the displayed over in the ohm meter, that can be used to calculate the resistivity directly. We can use the formula then to rho equals to 2 pi A into R to calculate the resistivity, where rho is the resistivity in ohm meter at the point located under point 0. So it is resistivity where with respect to which position, that we should know. The position is 0. As you can see, the 0 is placed just above the letter C of scope logo, which is lying at a distance h, which is that from the surface of the earth. Now h is generally 3/4 of a. There are 3 A's are available, so this formula is also available in various platforms, even over the open net. There is a standard formula that H, what could be the H, how much depth the resistivity is measured at what depth. So this is the depth, H equals to 3/4 A, and A has to be constant between all the 4 poles or the 4 electrodes. So we know the distance between any 2 electrodes, and pi value is constant. R value has been measured and displayed by the earth resistance measurement kit. So from that value, putting the standard value of pi, and as we know the distance A in meter, if we use the formula rho equals to 2 pi AR, we will be getting the value of resistivity. Now only thing is that here what we need to take a sign that the distance of distance between two electrodes has to be kept at a distance of minimum 4 meter. So the distance between two adjacent probes has to be more than 4 meter, whatever may be the conditions. And you can go up to any distance in the higher side, maybe up to 40, 30, 50, any distance we can go. Generally, people are measuring at a distance of 10 meter each or 15 meters each. So A is equals to, as a thumb rule, in between 5 to 15 meter can be a good value for the measurement. The Samplager method now is very similar to Wiener's method, or the a very small modification or the very small difference is there with respect to the Wiener's method. In the Wiener's method, we have seen the 4 poles are used. Here in Samplager method also there are 4 poles are used. Now in Wiener's method, the distance between every pole are fixed. But here, the distance between these 4 probes are not fixed. We can change it. Only the distance, the outer 2 stakes, we have to consider the 0 position as the center position. From the center position, whatever is the distance of the 2 outer poles of the current probes we have to consider as D. And the distance between the 2 voltage probes will be considering as A. Then formula is a bit difficult or not so easy to remember. Rho S, or the desired resistivity, is pi into d square minus a square by 4 multiplied by R. R, S and S, ES means whatever is this in between these 2 points, S and ES, these 2 blue portions. So resistance between this zone, whatever has been displayed into the meter, that will be multiplied, and finally entire value has to be divided by 4. So this is the Schlumberger method calculation. Then we will be coming to the comparison, as I have already covered some of the points over here. Wiener's method is more accurate and reliable. Schlumberger method is not that much accurate than that of the Wiener's method. Wiener's method is simple formula, whereas for formula in Schlumberger method a bit complex. Wiener's method is bit more time consuming, but Schlumberger method can be much not that much time consuming, because it saves considerable time in field, particularly when we carry out several tests to find out the profile of a terrain, because only 2 outer electrodes we are moving. We are not moving the entire thing, because once we have fixed the inner 2 voltage probes, that we can keep it fixed and we can keep on changing the outer 2 probes only. However, this time-consuming aspect has not gained the popularity across the users. So, Wiener's method is much popular than the Schlumberger method. Now, what should be the test frequency? This is a very big question people used to ask. Generally, people are talking 127 Hertz or 129 Hertz is the best frequency. It is not like that. Actually, what is the best frequency? There is a formula. There is no fixed frequency for the cell. The formula, and if that's the reason IEEE standard 81 has also mentioned about the frequency band. Any frequency between 50 Hertz to 3400 Hertz can be used for as a test frequency for the measurement of earth resistance or earth resistivity. However, they have also told the test frequency should not coincide with the system frequency, which is of 50 Hertz or 60 Hertz, or for being an universal system frequency, across the globe, we can say it should not be within 45 hertz to 65 hertz, considering the fluctuation or frequency fluctuation bands. And the test frequency should not be any subharmonic or superharmonics of the systemic frequency to minimize the effect of parasitic current present in the surveyed soil using appropriate filters. So, the test frequency should not fall into the superharmonics or the subharmonics of the system frequency. Like it should not be 10 hertz or 20 hertz, or it should not be 100 hertz or 150 hertz. Direct round figures, no, it is not the ideal figure. So how to understand whether the whatever the test frequency offered by the OEM of the earth resistance meter are suitable for my system, is a good frequency or not, whether it is in line with the IEEE standard 81 or not. There is a simple formula. Fg is equals to 2n plus 1 by 2 multiplied by Fs, where Fg is the frequency of the generator or the test frequency offered by the testing instrument manufacturer, and Fs is my system frequency. Once I know these two figures, I can calculate, or we can calculate, the value of n. If the value of n is coming an integer number, then it is not the ideal frequency. So it should not be an integer number. That is my criteria. So system frequency and test frequency should not, this relation should not be one solving. I should not get the value of n as an integer number. That's the primary criteria, because nobody is going for the subharmonic zone, that very low frequency, because IEEE has told it should be anything more than 50 hertz. So I did not have to consider the subharmonics part. So always it has to be superharmonics, or in the higher side. So it should not be more than n should not be an integer number. That's the check, we can say. Now coming to tower footing resistance, we have understood by and large what is the different methods used, what are the different types of resistance, what are the earthing points, earth pits, how it is done. Now tower, in case of towers, the earth pit is not at all any different than the things which we have discussed till now. So the resistance measurement, or the tower footing resistance measurement, should not be different, isn't it? But it is not the case. Let me go to the next slide. The moment I am putting a generator or the test kit, and I am putting the prongs as shown in the two road arrows, red color arrows, I am supposed to get the current only limited to that zone. But practically that is not happening. So what's happening? It is creating a parallel path, because there at the top, as we can see, there are the inductance of the line L1, L2, L3, L4. All those things are coming because the guard wire is connected into the transmission line, and we cannot remove the guard wire for the purpose of testing the resistance or the tower footing resistance. So it is creating a parallel path between the first tower and the second tower. And here also the problem is not getting limited. It is increasing. Every step, all the towers, n number of towers, in both in left hand side as well as the right hand side. So what we are getting practically is the parallel path of currents. Now, if we consider about the only three towers, three adjacent towers, and I want to measure the resistance at the center. So I am injecting a current I injected, and I drifted. Whatever is showing at the upward direction is going to the adjacent towers and going to the ground through the virtual resistances shown as RT dash and RT double dash. So in the right hand side, we have created the equivalent circuit of the same. So when I am injecting I injected over here, just one second. I am giving the current injection over here. What is happening? The current is not only going through this path, it is going through this path as well as this path. So and everyone is coming back to the system because I am using another probe is somewhere lying in other point. So this current is also coming over here. This current is also coming over here, and this current is also coming over here. So I am getting always a parallel effect. So this is the challenge of a tower footing resistance measurement. Now let us have a reference of SIGGRAPH Workgroup C4.2.02, article number 275, where it has beautifully explained the entire problem, and it is a very good paper to read out. It is a significant part of the injected current is getting drifted through the two adjacent towers as explained in the earlier slide, and I have kept the same equivalent circuit picture into the right hand side for reference. While using the common earth tester, whatever the displayed value I will be getting into the meter, that will be not the value of the tower, means RT, my desired resistance of the tower footing. I will not be getting that value as a standard. But then what value I will be getting? I will be getting that RT or the tower footing resistance in parallel with equivalent resistance Z equivalents of two adjacent powers in parallel to the another adjacent towers in parallel to the n number of adjacent towers. So if we remove or neglect for the at the time being all other things, or we can club all the Z equivalent things on the left hand side and right hand side, then we can get two Z equivalent. So RT in parallel to Z equivalent 1 and Z equivalent 2. And if we consider those two values of equivalent resistance or impedances are same for the two adjacent side, left hand side and right hand side, then we can say the displayed value will be RT in parallel to the Z equivalent by 2. Where Z, now this Z equivalent means it is not only the pure resistance, it is the impedance. Now the moment we are talking about impedance, the resistance and inductance is coming into picture, and as we know, every one of us, that these values are generally our frequency dependent, because capacitance and inductance values are varying with respect to frequency. So what is the test frequency? Based on that, the Z value is getting changed. Now to measure the tower with earth resistance, the two solutions are available. What could be the two solutions? Measure directly the current flowing through the earth electrode of the tower and reduce the current deviated into the earth wire to the value which can be easily neglected. So the current I drifted should be very, very small with respect to that one of I injected. So for the purpose of measurement, we can say the Z equivalent value should be such that it should be substantially high with respect to RT or the tower footing resistance. Then if the Z equivalent is becoming too high with respect to the Ohm's law, the current will flow through the least resistance path. So maximum current will then now start flowing through only RT. So my target is to increase the Z equivalent values or to bypass the entire value. These are the two options available. So the injected measurement current will be strong enough for the interfering currents to be neglected. As I have told, Z equivalent should be so high that I drifted can be neglected. Thus, the picture of high frequency has come into existence. So by changing the frequency, we can change the value of Z equivalent resistance. That's the reason there are lots of trial errors, lots of analysis has gone behind, and they have come up with a specific frequency that beyond this frequency or in this frequency, if we consider, then the value of Z equivalent is becoming so high that I drifted can be neglected, or I have to give a very high current through the RT so that the I drifted can be neglected. The either way, or I have to inject directly by in such a way I drifted can be zero. That can be possible only by removing the earth wire or the guard wire, which is not possible physically or practical purpose. Thus, the development of high frequency earth resistance measurement principle has come into picture. The main idea is to adapt the potential fall of potential method. This is the kit is operating into the fall of potential method. The basic fall of potential curve, how it is coming into that I will be showing you in the subsequent slide. Using a high frequency for the injected current in such a way that the value of Z equivalent becomes much higher than RT, as I have explained you earlier. The current diverted to other towers becomes very small. For frequencies lower than about 100 Hz, the impedance Z equivalent is much low and diverted current can't be neglected. Generally, when the frequency is lower, at those frequencies, the Z equivalent value becomes lower, and the I drifted or the drifted current or the parallel current becoming higher, which cannot be neglected. So we have to increase the frequency, increase the equivalent value of the Z of the adjacent tires, and then I drifted current can be neglected. This is the thing. Now, another thing is that test lead must be located in a way so as to reduce the mutual coupling. A minimum distance between the two circuits has to be maintained. Also, when we are talking about the vectors, where phase vector, voltage and current vectors, we have to minimize the effect. So we are adapting a technology when during the measurement of this high frequency earth resistance measurement, we will be putting the test probes or the earth electrodes in 90° to that of the direction of the tower or the line direction. So if the line is going from east to west direction, then I will be doing the measurement in the opposite direction, 90° apart, north south direction. I will be doing the measurement. Auxiliary earth resistance, electrode resistance must be less so as to reduce the capacitive coupling, because here we are playing with the Z, that means capacitance and inductance, and we are trying to get the value of resistance. So this all the methods. Now equivalent circuit of the earth wire with the earth return. When if we are talking about this thing, this simplified diagram, if we say this is the line propagation, horizontally it is happening. There is the RT is the resistance of the tower, or the tower footing resistance, and ZC, the gray zone, you can consider as the characteristics impedance of the circuit when the earth wire is there with earth return possibility is there. So to calculate the ZC, we have to use the formula root over R plus JL omega by JC omega, where RT is the resistance of the tower, ZC is the characteristics impedance, R small r is the resistance per unit length of the circuit earth wire with earth return system, I is the self-inductance per unit length of the, L is the self-inductance per unit length of the circuit, and C is the capacitance per unit length of the circuit. Now with these things, we can get the value of Z. This is all for the practical calculation. I am just going to explain how, explaining you how this high frequency has been established. The objective was to calculate the frequency value F for which the Z equivalent should be very high than the tower earthing resistance RT. The value of Z equivalent versus the frequency F is plotted by the experts and they have published these results. As I have mentioned, the Segre group 5 article number 275, this is the picture taken directly from them. So they have calculated this resistance distribution or the frequency versus impedance distribution curve they have taken, and we can see this spike has come somewhere around 15,000 hertz or 15 kilohertz zone, and the dotted line is the compared with the values of the impedance calculated with lump elementary theory. So I am not going into that lumped elementary theory and their formulas, because those are big formulas are available. However, if they have done this calculation, and the dotted curve, which is becoming flatter with if we increasing the frequency, that is considered, and the impedance versus frequency graph has been plotted, and in the blue vertical line, as you can see, that is coming somewhere around 19,000 hertz or 19 kilohertz. So what they have concluded is that any frequency for the rounding of, they have told that 20 kilohertz or more frequency can be used for the tower frequency, because in that zone, if we are increasing the frequency at that level, then this Z equivalent is becoming very high with respect to the tower footing resistance, and that's the reason majority or all the OEMs of this tower footing resistance, they are talking about any frequency higher than 20 kilohertz, or to be more precise, they are almost finalized at 25 kilohertz. Some people are using also 30 kilohertz. That's why this high frequency values has come. So why the high frequency? This is the reason why the high frequency has been decided by all the manufacturers to increase the Z equivalent value, so that we can do the neglect the value of drifted current, or in other words, Z equivalent should be such that it can be very high with respect to the tower footing resistance. Now, second consideration has come, how much distance I should be considering for putting the potential probe from the point of current injection. They have also, this is all nothing but the fall of potential graph. In this fall of potential graph, as you can see, in between these two blue vertical lines, we are getting a flat zone. That is the base zone for the measurement of the earth resistance. So what is the distance? So that distance is somewhere in the zone of 50 to 65 meters or 50 to 70 meters. So this is the reason the best value of resistance will be getting when we are putting the potential probe at a distance of around 60 meters or something like that. So that's the reason the majority, or even we are also recommending to put the voltage probe at a distance of around 60 meter and put the current probe at a distance of around 100 meter, and that is also matching the formula of 62% measurement method. So we have to pass the current between electrode G and current probe. So this is the 62% method has been explained. So from that potential probe, distance should be around 62% of the distance from current probe in the injection point G. So this is the reason it is recommended to measure with a long distance cable, which is also explained in the previous slide that why that long distance cable is required. To achieve this, generally a potential probe is kept at a significant distance to have suitable margin to achieve the desired slope. So we are trying to achieve this, our measurement in this flat or horizontal area in between two vertical blue lines. That is coming from the fall of potential graph. So in conclusion, the operation is based on the use of high frequency measurement current, which is generally at the range of 25 kilohertz, making it possible to reduce the effect of the adjacent towers under measurement. The equipment shall be placed as close as possible to the tower support where the grounding is located, and it will be connected to the instrument's E terminal. Means the current probe will be, or the instrument will be as nearer to the possible to the tower. Auxiliary rods will be set up in ground, making the straight line with the tower point 0 of measurement perpendicular to the power transmission line in order to minimize the effect or coupling. In order to establish connection with the farthest rod, the black cable must be used together with the shielded cable, black cable that must be connected to the equipment's H connector or the current connector. The central rod or probe will be connected to the equipment's S terminal or the voltage terminal. This is the appropriate tool for the first safe and reliable ground resistance measurement in each tower of working line in transmission without disconnecting the ground wire. Now, the EC instrument is giving some parameters as a display. This tower footing resistance meter. Those 4 parameters which is getting displayed are R, or the resistance, desired tower footing resistance, Z, impedance of the system, L, calculated inductance of the system, and C is the closest capacitance value at which resonates with the system inductance. So these are the 4 parameters, and there are lots of some people has asked me over the phone or different times. So I want to clarify that point also. This, which value I should keep as a reference, R or Z? Now hopefully I did not have to answer that you have to keep R only as a reference, because we are interested on the tower footing resistance, not the overall impedance of the system. So R is the desired tower footing resistance. This is the resistance of the tower itself, excluding the influence of the adjacent towers connected by guard wire. Z is representing the impedance of the system as a whole, which would be like measuring several towers at the same time with the something like with the help of a normal arc tester or the low frequency arc tester. Calculated inductance of the systems is also virtually it is calculated, and closest capacitance value which resonates with the system inductance. So in this instrument it is something like a RLC bridge balancing is taking place at high frequency, quick measurement, and then we are getting the value of R, and value of R is once again dependent on the fall-off potential method from at which distance you are measuring. So I need to keep the distance as required, and then we will be getting the all the things. And Z is calculated through Ohm's law. R equals to V by R. R is calculated by subtracting the system's impedance from Z. Z's L and C should be stored for future reference, as they denote if system has suffered any degradation over a period of time, or evaluate the wear and tear of the system, if there has something gone bad, those sort of things. So what need to be, my major concentration is R, but I will not be neglecting or discarding the data, whatever is given Z, C, and L by the instrument, because those has to be kept as a reference for future. So I'll be keeping those values also as a reference. So if a system changes, then I'll be able to correlate if the degradation has happened or if there are loose connections is happening, how the wear and tear has happened, whether the earthing system itself is going faulty or something like that. All the parameters I can get. Now coming to the product, it is a portable and lightweight kit. Range of resistance measurement is up to 300 ohms. Frequency of test current 25 kilohertz. Amplitude of current is 20 milliampere. Maximum, it depends upon the effective resistance or whatever is coming into the resistance. So it can go up to 20 milliampere. Accuracy is plus minus 2.5% of the reading, plus minus 1 digit. Now here on the based on accuracy, I can say one more parameter, one piece of information, that what is the accuracy, desired accuracy of a kit for the resistance measurement. If we refer the IEEE standard 81 and the SIGRE papers, they have mentioned over a period of 1 year, over various climatic conditions, the value of earth resistance can change in a zone of plus minus 20%. So 20% variation can be observed in an earth pit. So when we are talking about a 20% variation in the earth pit value, and that is also acceptable as per IEEE. So we do not require a very high accuracy earth tester like 0.5% or 0.2% or something like that. And if you look into the market, all the people who are having the earth resistance meter, the normal one is varying in the zone of 1%, 1.5%, 2% in those zones. Because those are more than sufficient, because my standard is allowing me to go here and there 20%. So that is the thing. And some people, there are some manufacturer also in the market who is offering that I am having a earth resistance meter offering the accuracy of 0.5% and selling the same at a bomb. Some people has asked me, no, I require this. Don't ask me why. I want to measure it accurately. And that could be a several discussion, a separate 2 hours discussion on how they are showing that 0.5%, what are the limitations, how it is in the Indian continent, it is giving that 2%. Actually, it is giving 2% accuracy in the Indian continent. That could be a separate day, separate discussion. If that scenario comes, that we can discuss separately. However, coming back to this product, the principal operation is 3-pole measurement. Connectivity to PC is USB. There is the inbuilt printer, battery status, inbuilt rechargeable battery. Now, one more thing is that what is not mentioned in over here is there are 2 more features in this kit. This kit can be operated through the smartphone, Android or iPhone, by installing one simple app, and the instrument is having the inbuilt GPS local capturing feature in the software, so that even you can take the picture of the tower and you can log the GPS location of the tower. So because tower, when I am doing the measurement, so towers are not just within the substation or something like that. So this GPS enabled thing and the picture taking capacity is the additional features, whatever is available over and above the other things, are going to be very helpful for the operator. So now till as of today, we will stop over here only. If you are having any other question, you can contact us in the email ID is given. Yes, now I am coming to questions. I got only one question, 2 questions. I will request Mr. Biju Abraham to write to us and marketing and scopetnm.com. In this platform, we are not eager to discuss or we will discourage to talk about the prices and other things, or our people, sales people will be contacting you shortly. They can talk about the prices. And Mr. Vaibhav Sansare, you have mentioned other OEM recommend to consider Z value. Sir, I have just now recommended what IEEE Standard 81 and SIGRE work group 4.02. They have mentioned what are the things the standards has mentioned. As an OEM, if somebody is telling something, I cannot take the responsibility of the same. I have kept you the things in front of you, what different standards are talking. Now it's up to you whether you will follow the instruction of the OEM or the instructions or the guidelines given by the SIGRE and IEEE. So it's up to you, and I cannot comment on that one. So because you can ask, or else you can ask them, okay, fine, you are talking about the Z value to be monitored, but if we change the distance, let's say from 70 meter to 50 meter, the value of Z is changing. So how the Z value will be remaining constant? For the same tower, same measurement, everything is same, only I am changing the distance. So either they have to do the software approximation or something like that. And if the kit is actually giving the measurement, the value of Z is supposed to change because of the inductance or the coupling is going to get changed, because it is the basic electrical theory or the basic physics, because the coupling between the line and the test leads, there used to be a coupling. That coupling amount is going to change the moment I am changing the direction of measurement or the length of the test lead set. So based on that one, the value of Z is going to change. But if you look at that time also, the value of R will generally be remaining constant. And then ask them the question, why the value of R is remaining constant and the value of Z is changing. So based on this thing, only you can get yourself satisfied and get the proper answer from the other OEMs. Is it necessary to separate or disconnect earth flat connection of tower? No, sir, it is not recommended at all, because if at the time of measurement any surge or any fault is coming into the system, then earth strip is the only point of safety. And if we remove the earth flat connection, there could be a catastrophic failure, or it could be a high voltage surge or fall of the step voltage effects. Anything can come. So from the viewpoint of operator safety and the human safety, this earth connection to the tower, or for that matter for a normal earth resistance measurement, the strip of the transformer, earthing or any such earthing strip must not be removed, because then we are sacrificing the our safety. So it must not be removed at any condition during the thing. Mr. Biju has asked, can you share the study material? I think you are talking about the work group study paper 275, which I have taken the reference, that you can get over internet by logging into the SIGRE website, because any of the IEEE or IEC or SIGRE documents generally we cannot share just like that until and unless we are getting the written permission from the respective authority and the author. So it is better you can study the material online. Sometimes some website are giving the free access also, you can look for them, but we cannot consider. Generally, if you are having the login, then you can use the same, any of the material, because there are lots of material, study materials are available. Is there any questions, other questions we can answer? We would request all of you to fill up the feedback form. The feedback forms link to the feedback form is available on the top of the chat box. You can click on the same and put your feedback. However, there seems there is no other question is coming at this moment. However, in future, if you are looking forward for any type of support regarding to the product information or sales related support, you can contact us as marketing ID. After sales related information or support you require, you can contact our service email ID. Regarding technical queries, you can contact us at ps@scope10m.com. Myself, Niloy Rai. I am the lead product specialist working in Scope. So, thank you, sir. Thanks for your time, and we do hope to get a encouraging feedback from your side for coming with